Click. Then click. What is the Warcaste TCG? At its core, the lore of the Warcaste TCG is a dark, high fantasy space opera. Earth has been destroyed, and with it, the Imperium of Man that ruled most of the galaxy fell overnight. Now the factions of the Warcaste fight to rebuild and defend what little is left as a dark threat hangs over the galaxy from the galactic core. The Warcaste TCG is a TCG that was designed to emulate a tabletop war game, but stay true to a TCG. This means no dice rolling and no measuring or grid movement. Many TCGs that try to be a wargame make the mistake of adding complex movement or die rolling, which detracts from the smooth tactical gameplay that a TCG offers. The Warcast TCG uses its roots as a wargame emulator to empower the player's tactical side. Players must balance unit movement and aggression to win. Push too far and your opponent will punish you for overstretched forces. Don't push enough and your opponent will overwhelm you with card draw. And pass. What are the unique mechanics? The Warcast battlefield is divided into 3 zones. Players play units in their home zone and fight their way to the opponent's home zone to attack their opponent's territories to win. Each zone acts as a separate battlefield. This unique system allows for movement within the TCG, while keeping Warcast a card game first and a war game second. Combat may look simple first, but both players have a chance to boost units by revealing a card from their hand and boosting a single stat during an attack. Cards a player boosts with are sent to the bottom of their deck, and they draw for each card they boosted with at the end of the turn. This enriches combat and helps players get rid of dead cards. This replaces a wargame's die rolling, while giving players more control over their side of combat while keeping them on their toes as their opponents can do the same. Units can also attack in squads to improve their chances of destroying a unit in combat, but opponents can still gain the upper hand by playing traps, intercepting with units, and boosting their units. Be careful not to overcommit your units in an attack, but undercommitting can have devastating consequences. And then click. Our distribution system. Our target audience for Warcast is players who want to play TCGs, not just collect them. We want the Warcast TCG to be first and foremost a TCG you enjoy and play. This is something a lot of TCGs have lost, as they target more of the collectability of the product instead of the playability. Major TCGs have lost a lot of the magic of what makes a TCG, as they chase making immediate money at the harm of the long-term health of the game. We want Warcast to be easy to get into and play with a low price of entry. Where other TCGs would make key cards for decks hard to acquire, we want to replace these super rare cards with alt arts and specialty foils. This will allow for collectability for players who want to collect, but will let players who want to play be able to afford decks without paying an arm and a leg. We built our starter decks to have key cards have key cards you need for that archetype, but still have room for players to explore and build. Our decks are designed to be an entry point to how to play Warcast. And then click. This is an example of one of our Shadow Arts, which is one of our rare cards in the TCG. And then click. Then where Warcast fits. Warcast is a groundbreaking TCG. Its unique mechanics lend well to Adventure Time's catalog of tactical games similar to Terraforge. Warcast has a medium playtime of about 45 minutes and would make a great addition to the Adventure Together's lineup. And then click. Here are some examples of products I've developed. We have our booster box, which is broken down into 30 booster packs. Each booster pack has 1 Doctrine, a foil card, which can be any rarity, 2 rares, with 1 in 4 packs replacing a rare with an epic card, 4 uncommon, and 8 common cards. Our starter decks come in 4 different versions, one version for each of our 4 factions in the first set. Each starter deck has a 30-card deck, a foil promo card, a Doctrine card, a paper playmat with a deck guide on the back, a rule book, and 6 dice that can be used for counters. And then all of our art and design is created by me, which really helps keep the costs down. And then you can click again. And then where we want to see the future go, we really want to be able to go to conventions and grow the player base. I really believe in this product a lot. I really believe that Warcaste can become the next big major TCG. And I've spent $6,000 and more of my own money putting into buying product to do this. I think we could do a Kickstarter to help launch this once we build a good player base, which will show popularity of the TCG once we have a strong player base, and will help cover the first print run. And then that's where we'll end there.
Awesome. Thank you, JC. Nick, you want to go first?
Yeah, I do. This was a very well done presentation. I want to bring that up, JC. You had a lot of the points that I was looking for. You went over how to play the game. You went over who you're targeting, who your audience is. I find it very impressive that you put that forth money to get that product ready. Can I ask where you're manufacturing out of right now?
We went with a company called Launch Tabletop. They're from China, and they're kind of opening up into print on demand. So we were able to do kind of a lower print run.
Sure. That's great. I had a question about your card structure. I am personally a big Pokemon guy. I like my foils. I like my holos. I like my inverse. All of that. Why do I want a foil card for this game?
So you kind of to bling out your deck, make it fancy.
Is there any difference in the way that the character functions, or is it purely cosmetic?
Purely cosmetic.
Okay, very cool. And how did you differentiate between your common, uncommon, rare? What was that delineation where you made the call to say, oh, this is a rare card versus this is an uncommon?
So, in Warcast, some of the boosting cards will have there'll be different types of boosts that you can have between the different cards. So, for example, I really wish I could share my screen. Is there a way we could fix that?
Should be able to.
Mine is grayed out as well.
Yeah, mine too.
Let me see. I can upload some files to the.
Sure. Yep, we could do it in the chat.
In the chat. Let me grab some cards here. So, for example, these 3 cards all function as the same card, except for the boost on them. So each one of these cards are function as
Where
the same.
Where did you post? Just so I can see it.
In the chat,
the chat
for
here. Got it. Yep, I see it.
And so these would all be common cards, which are indicated by the white star in the bottom right corner of the artwork.
Yep.
And so anything that has a boost on it will either be common or uncommon, because they you need more of those types of cards in the deck because of the different boosts you can run.
Got it. Very
and
cool.
then our more limited cards that are where you would want to run less of. For example, our homeworld, which is a territory replacement upgrade, a territory upgrade, where you can only have one homeworld and play at a time. So you'd really only play about one homeworld per game. Is an epic, which is our rarest rarity.
Understood.
So you'd want to run less homeworlds in your deck than you'd want to run these common cards.
Got it. Nope, that's very clear. Okay, so foil, got it. You mentioned that this is meant to simulate a war game to some extent. Is it still purely a deck builder and a deck battler, or does this come with some sort of playmat? What does the product look like when it's laid out?
So we include paper playmats,
Okay.
but it can be played easily without the playmats. At the game store, we play all the time with no playmats.
Got it. Are there, in theory, if let's say I wanted the playmat experience, what does that look like? Do I have little standees running around, meeples, or is it just purely laying cards down on that playmat?
Just the cards.
Okay. All right. That's what I wanted to clarify there. And your goal behind making it play like a war game, right? So to me, and this is probably just my experience when I think war game, I think tactical pieces out on a table, visualizing the battle. How does this capture that essence of a war game with just cards?
So what big thing is the movement. So you're moving between those different zones, and you're battling your way across those different zones. And as your opponent kind of clashes into your forces,
so you're
it
simulating movement
simulates that
with the
feeling.
cards.
Yeah, it
You're
simulates
kind
that
of going to
feeling.
other planets, other spots in space. And with that, do advantages and disadvantages play a role?
Yeah. So if you can capture the open zone by having
Okay.
the only units in the open zone, you'll draw 2 cards at the beginning of your turn instead of just the one. And then also being able to attack your opponent is kind of risky because your opponent can play cards to their home zone while you're overstretched because your forces will they'll be able to play more forces to intercept your forces in their home zone because they've got that advantage.
Very cool.
Where you have to move across that home zone while they're building up in their home zone, if that
I
makes
see.
sense.
It,
Because
it
you
does.
have a couple turns to make it across, where they have all those turns to build up in their home zone.
I really find it fascinating, and I'm really actually intrigued by the idea of simulating placement using cards and kind of visualizing or trying to make the players visualize where their players or their cards are at any point in time. If I would love to play it for that reason, just to see how you accomplish that goal. Sounds really, really interesting to me that you could kind of play a card game out and be like, well, I'm in the XYZ system and I have this benefit and I see you over there. You're trying to make it to your home zone. Really, really messes with my head because I'm thinking visual board. But I would love to see how you do that with cards. Very cool. That's a really unique. I'm going to say this a lot. That's a really unique value proposition for the game to me. I haven't seen
Thank you.
anything in the market that does something like that. And you mentioned your audience, and this is something I wanted to dig in more, and I'll talk to Iggy more later. But for yours, you mentioned that you're looking at TCG players, existing TCG players that are looking for a new experience within that. What's your age range on this?
I would say 12 and up.
12 and up. Okay. And how long does it typically take you to teach this game to somebody?
Usually about 45 minutes to an hour to teach and play a
Really?
game.
To teach and play. Okay.
Yeah,
Got
usually
it.
about an hour.
And that's for a full game. Even if you know the game, you're saying the timeline's around 45 minutes a game, which means you're getting closer to an hour with the teaching, which means maybe 10, 15 minutes of teaching. And of course, there's teaching done during gameplay.
Yeah, teaching done during gameplay, yeah.
Got it.
And that's with playing certain decks. Other decks will take longer with teaching. But
and how have your playtests been going overall? How many playtests have you done? Do you have recordings, not necessarily like visual recordings, but are you recording your playtests, how they're performed, how they've been received by the community?
Yep. So I've got some forums where I've did like a study on everybody who's been playtesting that I can share with you guys.
That'd be great.
And then I also did and playtesting. I'm currently playtesting set 2 right now. Set 1 is ready to go.
And set 1 is part of that booster box that you showed off, or booster box is separate from your base box?
Set 1 is the booster box and the starter decks.
Got it.
Starter decks have all cards from that are in the booster box.
Okay. Chris, I'll hand it off to you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much, JC, for the presentation. Really
Mhm.
awesome to walk through it. I love the animations and I love your art style. So congratulations on
Thank
on
you.
the artwork. I'm an artist myself. I know it's no easy task. I was checking out the website earlier. I saw you're using basically Blender, and then
Mhm.
taking Blender and a mixture of what, Photoshop after the fact to texture
Uh,
and render out the final art.
I actually make the models themselves in Tinkercad, and then
Okay.
add texture in Blender, and then add details and like the lasers and the background, and any other details like that in Photoshop.
So for all of the cards in the game, and it looks like the planets as well, you have 3D
Mhm.
models and textures. So everything's UV unwrapped and
Planets are made in
textured, or
Photoshop,
planets are in
but
Photoshop. Okay. But
yep.
probably not too difficult to take a sphere and texture it to look like planets you have in the cards.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
ask
pretty easy.
I'm asking simply because I do see a lot of fun potential for something that already has that depth of creative effort put into it for digital adaptation. And so having the 3D models is pretty neat. Also for animating and creating promotional videos and or
Mhm.
content for the game, it's great to have that stuff. So that there's a lot of value to that, apart from just the
Yeah.
art on the cards. Um, all right, so I'll start with, do you have any questions for us first as a publisher? Anything that you as a designer are really curious to know about, or, any burning questions you have for us specifically or for publishers in general that I can help answer before I dive into
Um,
my thoughts?
are you guys looking for a card game or a TCG? Because like a TCG would be a long-term investment, and so I'm like wondering if that's something you guys are willing to invest in.
I would say that we are looking for games that are good. We're not going to
Makes sense.
discriminate based on the type of game or how long the commitment or investment takes. I think that uh, a long-term investment, like, typically the way a publishing contract will work is there's going to be some sales targets we'll both work very
Mhm.
hard to achieve together, and if we do, we renew the contract.
Nice.
So typically it's like we'll always both have time and opportunity to say, "Hey, is this working? Hey, isn't it? Should we reinvest? Should we go elsewhere?" And
Okay.
so that's always going to be part of the designer publisher relationship, to have these really like honest and open conversations about how the product's doing, how, is the community growing, how's the game, is everybody happy? So we'll
Mhm.
always have points to sort of check back in. We don't shy away from long-term commitments. We're in this for the long haul. Um, so yeah, if a game were to go out and perform really well, we continue to reinvest constantly.
Nice. That was my main concern.
Yeah, I mean that would be a dream come true. Actually, I think that's what most publishers want. They'd love to
Right.
have a game and a product that has longevity that they can continue to reinvest in and see, into the foreseeable future, it
Makes
thriving and the
sense.
community around it growing. Yeah, so we definitely want that. It's the way you'd approach it though would be through the contract and outlining what those phases look like and what your success metrics are, so you guys can come back to the
Okay.
table and then say this is working, or hey, we need to switch things up.
Makes sense.
Any other questions from the publishing point of view?
I think that was my main one.
Okay. So I absolutely love space. I work in space as a career. I'm a big space
Nice.
nerd, and that's what drew me to Warcast. That and the name. I think the name is badass. I don't know if it's going to be trademarkable because it is so badass. I don't know. Have you looked? Are there other games that have this name on BGG? Because it's a solid brand name. If we can.
There's stuff like Warcaster is the
Okay.
closest I've seen.
Okay. All right. Well, obviously we do a trademark search before we
Mhm.
before we went to publish, but love it. So this definitely draws me to the game. I also really liked the unique art style. It reminds me slightly of RimWorld. I'm a big player. I love RimWorld. I've always had so much fun playing
Nice.
RimWorld on Steam, and I like that. I feel like I'm sort of transported to this that sort of thematic universe.
Well,
So
thank you.
yeah, of course. In terms of the cards, different types of cards. So this is mostly ship combat, right? I've got my planets, I've got my home
Mhm.
world, I can set traps, and I'm flying around in ships of different
Mhm.
classes, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Okay. And right now you have the one box, or let's call it faction, or are there multiple factions already, or is the plan for the next
So there
a new faction?
is 12 factions planned.
12
Um,
factions planned.
and I've got all 12 already done and made.
Okay.
If you want, I
And
can go over what those 12 are.
yes, yeah, please tell me about them.
So the four, which come in the first set, are the Carnage, which are, let me pull up my website real quick. The Carnage, which are kind of they were one of the human offshoots, and they were kind of abandoned on this volcanic planet. Lost where they weren't able to leave the volcanic planet for a while. Lost the ability to space travel for a little bit, and so they went basically warred among themselves for about 100 years, and then another spacefaring race discovered them again, and they ended up reconquering, or they ended up retaking control over being able to go back into space because of that battle. And so their whole thing is they want to destroy life because of how hard their hardships on this planet have been. We've got Ramus, which is another human offshoot. Their whole thing is the original faction on Ramus got destroyed during the Imperium expansion and they got bombed pretty heavily. And so Ramus itself, the planet, is half of it's really destroyed. The Ramus people are split into two different sub-factions. You got the Church of the Spectre, which is all about peace and trying to remember those that died on Ramus. And then you've got the Warborn of Ramus, who are trying to protect Ramus and expand, and are kind of a militaristic doctrine. You've got the Trade Coalition of Corinth, which is a loose trade coalition that served the Imperium until the Great Collapse. They are now kind of mercenaries that work for anybody and are trying to expand their empire after the Great Collapse. And then you've got the Psychers. They were a experiment that the Imperium did during when the humans first met an alien race. They did an experiment to try and create a AI mixed between genetics to try and create a kind of a super AI thing. So they're half AI, half mechanical, half genetic, or like genetic material. And so they kind of got their own system going on. They're super advanced psychologically, and they're prophets and psychers that have kind of foresaw the collapse of the Imperium and are working to build what is known as the Fleet Final, which they're hoping will save the universe. But as they're building this Fleet Final, a lot of their different factions within their faction are fighting over who will be in command of this giant fleet. And so they're falling apart within their own system. And then in set 2, you have the Rakshi, which is an ancient race of alien who were slavers. They kind of were there. They were kind of the main controllers of the galaxy before the Imperium of Man took over. Their empire is falling apart as they're just kind of an old ancient race that's dying out. You have the Karth, which is another offshoot of the human race, whose planet is being, whose star their planet was orbiting went into a black hole and created a sickness that infected their planet. And it's a kind of a mind virus. And so they weaponize this mind virus that infects sentient beings. And so they kind of spread it and use this bioweapon as in their warfare as they try and expand their empire. You have the Vakroth, which were one of the alien races that were enslaved by the Rakshi and were wiped out, but they created a bunch of different kind of pods within the tomb worlds of the Rakshi. And these, once the Rakshi tomb worlds were abandoned, the Vakroth pods opened and unleashed a bunch of new Vakroth, which are now rebuilding the Vakroth Empire. And then you have the Forged, which is a runaway AI that is building a new empire, or building a new kind of building an empire for itself, as it kind of claims and claims mining worlds and is trying to expand. And then you have the what was it called? Then you have the fleet of the Morning Star. Mourning as in sadness. This is the alien race that took out the Imperium. They are a fleet of aliens that came from the Galactic Core. They're kind of special because the Galactic Core is usually too. No one knows what's in the Galactic Core because the stars are too close together for what warp travel to normally occur within, and so no one knows. Because no one knows what's in there, no one's been able to study it. And the fleet came from inside the Galactic Core and is using different technology than everybody else is using for space travel. And they kind of did a subtle strike that wiped out a big chunk of the inner Imperium in just a couple of days, and kind of that caused a great collapse within, and kind of set off this whole set of events that's causing the story of Warcaste to happen and causing all the different wars to happen. And so nobody knows if there's going to be another attack or anything, and that's where the main storyline comes from. You also have the Helixian, which are a race of aliens that worship two different star gods. And then you have the Morgul Nexus, which is a race of insect aliens that live out in the galactic rim.
Awesome.
So it sounds real quick, Shaper. So it sounds like you have a fair amount of lore behind your game, JC. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
And you have that kind of written out already to some extent, or is it all up here?
The lore and I've got actual lore on the website if you want to go and deeper dive into it.
Excellent.
I can send you a link to that.
Perfect. Unfortunately, guys, I have to drop. I have to be a dad for a little bit here. It was wonderful meeting you, JC. I'm going to read up more about you. I'm going to also message you. I'd like to get a playtest in. One of the individuals who's a founder is not here tonight, Salpy or Anthony. I'd like to get him playtesting as well, all the games that we're kind of looking at over the next few days here. But look forward to hearing from me. I apologize. I have to run early. I'll leave you in the good hands of Chris, and we will talk soon. Very much appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Nick. Yes, so it sounds like you have a lot of lore, and clearly are really, really passionate about telling stories in this universe. What is this our universe, but many, many thousands of years into the future? Is it its own distinct universe?
It's its own distinct universe. So Earth is actually located closer to the galactic core in this universe than it is in our universe.
Okay. Do you have a star map?
I do.
Cool.
I can send that to you as well.
Yeah, please do. Okay, fantastic. So I love the lore. I love the depth. Anything that really helps players kind of get invested in the story.
Yeah, so I've got those posted in open chat.
Awesome. I'll check those out when I can. Some questions from a, let's say, you've invested $6,000 in the game. I know you want to grow the player base. You're ready to go to a Kickstarter. You're ready for publishing. How big is your community now? Have you started growing that community of players? I know you have tournaments. I know obviously the people in this community are helpful, but do you have your own sort of space in which you're fostering your community and growing it? And then what are your plans to do that post the game being in the market? And then what are you looking for in a publisher?
So I have my own YouTube channel that I've started, I want to say like a year ago. Um, I need to be more active on it, but it has 71 subscribers so far, 63 videos. And then I've got my own Discord server with 44 members so far.
Okay,
And
and then
so,
I'll jump back to what is it you're looking for in a publisher at this stage where the game is for launching this first one? Is the first and most important thing in your mind getting to market quickly? Is it growing that player base before you go to market? Is it finding a partner to help you do this, that, or the next thing? Like, where do you see the game's needs and/or the needs of you? And/or
um,
your needs.
growing the player base and then going to market is, I think, the next goals.
Got it. Play race and then to market. Do you have any sort of like target in mind for when you think you want to do that?
For the player base and then going like target for player base.
For a Kickstarter?
I'm not really sure what a good target would be. I would say probably maybe 200 on the Discord.
Oh,
300.
okay. In terms of community, in terms of time for you,
Oh,
are
time.
you?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um,
If you don't have a target, you don't have to come up with one. Just curious
yeah. Sorry, I
if you
don't
are
have a
looking
target.
for
I
more.
think I'd rather have a good quality
Of
than
course.
rush it.
Good. Well, I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah, we work with lots of different designers, and they all have sort of their different objectives, right? We've got one team who's
Mhm.
very much like we want to launch Q1 this year, no matter what. And then as a publisher, we come in and try and figure out if we can accommodate that. So it sounds to me like you're way more invested in making sure this is a quality game product, that the story and the community is growing,
Mhm.
and that we get it right before we go. Okay, awesome. Can you go back a couple of slides for me?
Yeah, Rex got it. I think I don't know how you go back, so he'll have to figure it out.
Keep going, Pat. Okay, keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Right here. Okay, so I love that you've been putting a lot of thought into the product and what that's going to look
Mhm.
like out on the market. There's clearly some thinking here and like what the product strategy is, and that's super useful to give us a frame of thought for where this fits. As I mentioned on our last call, we are very interested in breaking into retail with a sort of lower cost entry type product. This definitely meets that requirement as well. The pack, so this big box here, this booster box, it's
Mhm.
coming with 1, 2, 3, 4 separate packs of cards.
30 packs total.
30 packs of cards total. Got it.
Yeah.
And okay, and each one is broken down into those. Okay, got it. Just wanted to
Yeah.
be clear on that. Okay, that makes sense. And these starter decks in 4 versions, have you put any thought into the pricing?
I would
Like,
aim for the starter decks I got. I paid $10 per starter deck, and then I'm selling them for 20 currently, or will be selling them for 20. I'd like to get that down to like 15, if
what was the
possible.
cost? What was the cost to make it, if you don't mind me asking, through the print-on-demand vendor you chose?
It was $10 for because of the low amount that I had to buy,
Yeah, of
based
course.
on how little based on the 6,000 I spent.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. I would say that the same advice I gave for the last pitch holds here. I'd love to understand a little bit more what a turn structure looks like. I think the
Mhm.
best way to tell that story is a GIF, of literally it being played on your table. That's something that, as a publisher, like want to understand in a couple of minutes, like, hey, how quickly can I teach this to a person, and what does that look like?
I do have a GIF I can share with you of a turn structure, if it'll load up on here. So
Yep,
this is
got it.
yep.
Attacking squads. Watch out for enemy interceptors. Engage units for power effects. And are there lanes? It looks like there's probably 4 lanes.
No, so there's 3 different zones that you move between. So you play units into your home zone, then they can't move the turn they enter, but they can attack. After a turn, they spend a turn in their home zone, then they can move into the open zone, and then they can move into your opponent's home zone and attack your opponent's territories.
Okay, and even if there's enemies in the space zone with me, the neutral zone, I can move past them.
Yep, you can move past them. You do. Your opponent will get a chance to attack your units as they're in the open zone if they have units in the open zone though.
Awesome. All right. Well, I mean, I don't have to, I guess, repeat what I said in the last call. I think you were in the audience about the sort of things that we're most interested in and we're looking for in games. But for
Right.
sure, you're demonstrating all those things we care about, right? Which is an attention to detail, story, authenticity in the story.
Mhm.
You're passionate about it. You're clearly invested in it. You're working towards growing and building the community. And these are all things that we absolutely love. So I definitely want to play this. If for no other reason than to steal a crown from Pat, because that would bring me a deep amount of joy.
Yeah.
But I love the theme. The game sounds really cool. I'm a big fan of war games. I'm just kind of getting into card games. Terra Forge was like my big moment to sort of get more into
Nice.
card games. But I love that you're trying to blend the two. I've also been working on a lot of projects on the side where I'm trying to get wargaming and card gaming to work together, remove the dice rolling. So a lot of similar sort of it seems like mind space that we're sharing. So I'd
Sweet.
absolutely love to play this. Let's follow up. Let's make sure that we can get something down between you. It seems like Kamara wants to bring in Salpy too, who designed Time Strike and is designing most of the games internally at AT. I really, really love that you're using the 3D models for this. And the reason I do is because I see a lot of potential for lots of new and exciting 3D type technologies coming out that I guess, let me frame it as a question. Would you ever be open to having community, if there was an easy way to do so, expand upon this universe? Like players coming in and helping build out factions or building out their own factions, which then could become official through an approval process.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Okay.
There'd be like an approval process, but yeah.
Yeah, obviously, you'd have to keep it balanced, and it would all have to pass through
Right.
your mind. But there's when I see galaxy scale games, one of my first inclinations as a publisher is how do I get a community really engaged in this? Like, yeah, we've got story and that's great. That'll grip them. And I know you can nerd out deep in the lore, the building aspect of, how you play and strategizing. Of course, that experience brings you back. But to really unleash communities, I think giving them a way to become part of the lore and part of the canon and part of the game is something I think is going to be pretty big in the future for publishers. With all the new technologies and the ways that we're getting more closely connected and creativity sort of expanding. So we'd love to, when we do a playtest, discuss that more with you, but it's cool. It's cool to hear that you are somewhat open to it. It's not like a requirement for us to, get more invested in a project like this, but it is something I spend a lot of time thinking about, and this does seem like a really good fit for that. But hey, thank you so much for this pitch. Pat, thank you again. Thank you to everyone in the audience for coming by. Loved hearing about it. Thank you for sharing your passion with us. This is a very, very cool.
Thank you for your time.
Game. Pat, anything to say before we drop off? Yep. Thank you so much, JC. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, everybody. Talk to you again tomorrow, right? Okay. See everyone again tomorrow. Cheers, guys.
Have a good one.